Welcome to Leading Life, the show all about living Welcome to Leading Life on your terms.
You will learn tips, tools, and strategies for achieving total personal transformation.
I'm Brent.
And I'm Cam.
This is Leading Life. Surprise, Cam. No, I've got the special guest this week. His name's Frank Sagasta, and we met, I think, kind of just by chance through social media and stuff. And we had a conversation, I think maybe a week back, maybe it was 2 weeks back, and we had a great conversation. I just thought this guy needs to be on the show. This guy's got a message to share, and so we've got Frank on the show today. Frank, why don't you tell us about yourself? Tell us how you got here, man.
Well, to begin with, man, it's been a long road. 37 years old, man, and I can definitely tell you that it's had its ups and downs. It's been a bumpy road, but I think you're absolutely correct. We did speak about a week ago. It was my daughter's birthday, and we were out to eat, and we got connected through Messenger and through social media, through Facebook, and it was just real quick, man, that we had to get this opportunity to talk. And I love the opportunity to get to know you. It was awesome that moment, and I told you as I'll tell you again, being able to conversate with people and share the same mindset, but also the same goals in life is better. It's one of the greatest commissions, and a lot of people are always searching for different things, but for myself, being able to harmonize with you was better than getting the other commission that a lot of people are looking for, is that monetary system, and that's not what I'm looking for. Being able to encourage and motivate and inspire our future leaders is what it's truly about in this world today.
Yeah, and I love that, because that actually brings on the topic we wanted to talk about today, which was the power of mentors, which for me has been a huge transformation. I mean, I remember when my mentor was Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day, or like some rock star, Dave Grohl. And it wasn't until I had a shift in mentors when I had a shift in everything else, because I had somebody else to look up to and learn from. And, everything really comes from mentors, right? Let's get into it, man. I'm just excited. I'm getting ready to turn over. So what do you think is the most important of mentors? Like, why mentors?
The reality, man, is if a mentor doesn't plant the seed into any individual, then we'll never understand the potential that we have deep down inside of us. And like you said, you had some iconic figures that were your mentors that you looked into. And for me, it was one individual that graduated from the University of Notre Dame. I met through, as I said to you before, I come through, orphanages and foster homes. As a runaway, that was my last runaway. My last foundation was an orphanage of 8 boys, and the seed was planted. When the seed was planted, nobody watered it though, because I was only there for 5 years. Also, from the end of my junior high through high school, I was in this orphanage, and nobody ever watered it. He would water it from time to time, but never instilled all those great attributes that you actually need in life. In bits and pieces did I see the leadership within him, but again, you have to water the seed, or they'll never grow. And for me, it wasn't until later on in life, 2010, where I finally met my mentor in life and started following that individual, and just really seeing the aspiration of what it really takes to be a great motivator, and motivation is a choice. Of course, we know that, but just inducing myself into the principles and teachings of it. So it's been, like I said, it's awesome, man. And I know that each and every person has to have that seed. We all built with it, but nobody ever looks and searches for it or seeks it out. And it's amazing.
Yeah, no, totally. So who is this mentor that you're speaking of? The one who helped
his
make the
His
shift?
name is Michael Smalls. He was an outside linebacker for the University of Notre Dame. Like I said, he was the individual that planted the seed when my last resort in 1993, going from the California State foster care into an orphanage, it was at that moment that he introduced himself to me, and a little later did he describe a little bit more about his life. You know, after he felt comfortable with who I was, he felt comfortable exposing what he did in life, and I was just in awe. And so after that moment, I just became a Notre Dame fan, devoted fan. But he had to expose himself and feel comfortable, and then expose himself, and then pour into me. But he didn't pour a whole, you know, he didn't pour the 120 in. He only poured 95, you know, maybe 99%, you know. But it was later on in life that I had to go through more trials and tribulations in order to actually get to that opportunity of 2010, and then in 2015, fully engulf myself with, you know, with the watering, and with the shade, and with the sun rays of nutrients of just grind, man. Just 120 and give it all out for free, man. There's nothing to keep.
I love that philosophy too, you know, the metaphor of like the seed and having to water the seed, because that's oftentimes what happens, right? We have this, you know, we get an idea, or somebody inspires us, or we just hear something, or feel something, but it's not quite enough to make us take a new action. It's just like a thought. And then oftentimes, you know, our subconscious mind kind of goes to work in the background, you know, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years, until it finally clicks in, and we finally make that big shift. My question for you is, what was that first thing that really hit the spark for you with your mentor?
Wow. I would say for me, it was actually coming home after practice, actually leaving school. I did school, came home from practice, and again, this is 1994, and I was literally like, I was at wit's end, man. I had gone through a practice, and, you know, being abused as a child, man, I had all this anger, all this frustration built in me, but I didn't know how to release it. And so I came home after my coach yelled at me and grabbed me by the face mask, and I was just in anger, and I put a hole in the wall. And that's when he grabbed me and he shook me basically and told me there are better options. There are better options than punching a hole in the wall. And that was the moment where I started realizing, you know what, there are better options in life. Even though it wasn't until 2015 that I had gone through all these trials and tribulations that I started choosing bad options and good options and good options and bad options, that I finally just realized in 2015, December 31st, it was time to stop making those bad options and start planting more seeds of good options and good opportunities, you know, and be very optimistic with things, man. So it took a long road. It really did. Mm-hmm. But it was that moment, man.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like, one thing that always amazes me is how human beings are taught how to be human beings, right? You know, from the point we're babies, we're not really, you know, we don't just open up into the world and all of a sudden we have all these opinions and beliefs and you know, we're taught to believe we're this kind of person. We're taught the behaviors that we make, right? And so oftentimes, as you were talking about how you grew up not making the best decisions, right? So you must have had an initial mentor who you looked up to, maybe even subconsciously, somebody else who was making bad decisions who you just looked at and said, oh, well, I'm just going to do what this person does, right?
So ultimately, that person was the negative subconscious mind, in the fact that I had like this make-believe person on the side of me, literally. And it sounds kind of loony. A lot of people think it's crazy, but we all have this interaction. And sometimes my wife will look at me kind of odd when I start talking out loud, and I'm talking out loud that my subconscious mind will adhere to it. But literally, it was the negative side of life that I was seeing that was causing me to go astray because of all the abuse that I'd had when I was a kid, and then losing my mother and my stepdad, and just going through this negative side of life and think, you know what, this is how life is supposed to be. But then, you know, shortly after, man, 2010 hit, I started seeing, well, there is an actual brighter side of day. But even through from 2010 to 2015, I still seen those bad areas, but I had those struggles, those circumstances we have to go through life, and I needed those ones even before then to get where I'm at today.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what the Leading Life podcast is all about. You know, that's what we do here is we try to just bring up topics, bring up conversations, ideas that strategies, techniques, whatever you want to call it, stuff that will help you get the edge in life, get you to lead your life and make those decisions. And the first thing, like the first step is realizing the possibilities, right? Because if you don't believe things are possible, how are you ever going to take the action, right? And finding a mentor, like for me, a big shift for me was my initial mentor. His name was not even a mentor from like a personal mentor, but me, I like to consider mentors from afar too. Like the most beautiful thing about the internet today is what we're doing right now. We can connect with people from all over the world. So I don't need a mentor in my house. I could have a mentor from across the world who is teaching me important life lessons that can change everything. And so for me, you know, I was growing up in music, always Cameron too. You know, we grew up in music, always looking up to rock stars, and rock stars don't always make the best decisions. You know, there's a lot of partying. There's a lot of messing around. There's a lot of just, it's not always the most luxurious lifestyle anyways. And so for me growing up, I thought, yeah, like those are my mentors. I got to follow their path. Right. And it wasn't until I started discovering, I mean, I hit rock bottom before anything, right? Because you go down a path like that, you're gonna reach a point where, you know, the alcohol is too much, the drugs are too much, the partying's too much, you know, the depression, self-doubt, self-destruction is just too much. And finally I broke down and started looking for new mentors. And that's when I discovered, you know, people like Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill, Ralph Smart, Eric Thomas, like so many great motivators, thought leaders, influencers, mentors, whatever you want to call these guys, you know, they're out there. It's just a matter of going out and finding it and knowing what kind of information you need too, right?
Yes. I totally agree with you. I really can't agree with you. When we spoke and before we ended our conversation, when you told me about Think and Grow Rich and how young you were, I was just like blown away and I was just moved. When I went into Chili's, man, I did a real quick live with some cheerleaders that were there. They were promoting our school and they were fundraising. And so I did a quick live with them and then went in there and I was still on fire. Like, man, like you were just basically by me. Like literally you were with me when we went in to eat, you know what I'm saying? And I got to sit down and tell my wife about our conversation, tell my kids about our conversation. And my kids today are still blown away by that, you know, that I get to interact with people around the world. And they love that. In fact, my daughter helps me out in the morning when I do shaking with coach, or if I do cooking with coach in the kitchen, or if I just do, you know, no sugar in my coffee, you know, and they love helping. And I think it's so cool, man. But like, as you talked about those mentors and those influencers in life, you're absolutely correct, man. Like literally, if it wasn't for 2010, for me finding Eric Thomas, now I heard Tony Robbins and I had purchased one of his books, but it sat on the shelf. Now, just like anything in life, man, any book on the shelf does nothing unless you apply the information in the book. Mm-hmm. And as I expressed to young entrepreneurs, this young gal at our school, she came up to me a few weeks back. She's like, Coach, I want to be a motivational speaker. I'm like, that's cool. That's awesome. I'm glad. I said, but before you can change the world, you got to change yourself. And she was blown away by that. But I said, it's absolutely true. I said, because for me, I had to make that moment, that promise in 2015, even though I had followed Dr. Thomas and got affiliated with him and really engulfed with the information and employed all the information into my life. From 2012 to 2013, 14, and then 15, I was still making bumps in the road. Now, I'm not perfect right now by far, but I can say that, you know what, I have more of a conscious mind before I make any rash decisions. And so 2015, December 31st, when I made the full promise that this is what I'm going to do for my life, and this is what I'm going to do and help others and be a learner and influencer, not so much, you know, like some people title themselves as motivational speakers or inspirational speakers. No, I said influencer. I want people to be influenced by my steps and by my actions, not just by my words. And sometimes people will see the shirt that says be about it because I'm not talking about it. I'm doing it. You know, and that's one of the things is like I shared earlier is my mentor, the one that planted the seed, wasn't putting much action. You know, he wasn't showing me that there's a whole new life to reading. There's a whole new life of reality to information. And like Dr. Thomas says, information changes situation and knowledge is the new money. Nobody ever told me about that. So when you told me about your brother gave you that book, I was engulfed because I was like, man, my 9-year-old daughter is reading that. And I'm like, by the time she's 22, and I've shared this with her here at the dinner table or even sitting on our couch, that one day you'll read this book and many other books in our library. You won't need a man to support you. You'll be that strong, that confident, and you'll wake up each and every single morning with determination that you're going to be great, and you will be. So that's the seed right there. I just planted the seed in her. So now I just got to keep on watering her. And my 2 boys. Right now, my oldest boy, he's still fighting at the bit, man. He's 16, already knows the whole world. And it's crazy.
Yeah. Actually, Cam, I want you to tell a little bit about your story here, because when I first met Frank and we first talked, we talked about Think and Grow Rich and how that book had a huge effect on the both of us. But initially, Cam, you were the one who sent me this book to check out. So tell me, like, how did you get this book? Like, how does what were you, 15, 16-year-old kid get a hold of a book like Think and Grow Rich and completely change your life?
Oh man, like I was sitting in my basement, not very happy with life, to be honest, because I felt like I was in like this dead-end situation where we just got done a tour with our band and it was very unsuccessful. Like we were arguing the entire time. We only played maybe 5 gigs and each gig had maybe 2 people at it. So like I was just fed up with the way things were going. And I recently just started a YouTube channel. So this YouTube channel was like my happiness. This was my juice for life. I was so happy doing this. But in the back of my mind, I was worried, because this band was my key to success. This was the reason everybody believes in me. My parents, the reason they believe in me. My aunt, my grandparents, all my friends, they're all just like, oh, you're in a band, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, my YouTube video makes me happier than my band. Like, what's up, you know? And so I decided that I needed to figure out a way that I can make this YouTube as successful as this band was supposed to be. You know, because I figured, oh, this band's the only way to get successful. This YouTube channel is just nothing. It's just a game. It's just a hobby, you know. So I had to find a way. And I looked up on the internet how to be successful or whatever. I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't know what personal development was. I had no idea what self-help was, or if there even was anybody talking about how to be successful in any field. And then I found the audiobook for Think and Grow Rich. And I listened to the 10-hour audiobook in 2 days. I hid in my basement with some food and, and some video games. And I'd play video games and listen to this thing. And I would also draw, I would doodle while I'm listening to it. And at one point, I think it was maybe chapter 4, something clicked. You know, it was like maybe that seed was there. You know, I don't know what it was, but something clicked. And I made my decision. I'm going to quit the band. I'm going to do what makes me happy, because it doesn't even matter what becomes successful. Like, dude, you could be a successful doctor and just hate your life, you know? Like, what if being a doctor is not what you want to do? And that goes for what a lot of people are doing nowadays, because there's you know, depressing millionaires. There's millionaires who have depression because what they're doing on a daily basis isn't in alignment with their greater purpose. So it blew my mind, and I quit the band, and nobody understood it. Brennan was mad. My dad was mad. My dad like disowned me. Mom and dad were just like so mad. My aunt, the great biggest fan of the band, was so disappointed in me. Everybody was. But at that point, I didn't care, because I read this book and I knew what I needed to do. And when I told Brennan I quit the band, dude, he was like, how'd you feel, man?
I was pissed off because you quit the band like a day before we had a show. And I was really excited about the show because at the time I was a big drinker. I don't drink at all anymore, but I was a big drinker, and there was this big party coming up. It was New Year's Eve. Everyone's going to be getting drunk. There's going to be so much fun. We're playing a house party. It's going to be like super packed. I was just pumped about it. And you quit the band the day before, and then the bass player, he said he didn't want to play the show either. So I actually ended up going to play that show alone, and I had 2 fill-in members of the band. But I was just so pissed, man. Like, I felt like you said, Cam, like the whole world's crashing down. It didn't make any sense. But see, the difference, Cam, is you right away you went and looked for answers, whereas me, I spent 20 days. I think it was at least 20 days of just pure depression and pure just feeling down and feeling sorry for myself and questioning everything. And then that's when you sent me Think and Grow Rich, and I finally picked it up and I finally started listening to it. And man, I swear it was like the first 5 minutes of this book, I was captivated. I was like, there was information in that book that I'd never heard before. There were things that I needed to hear, like seeds that had been planted that had not been watered, and this book was finally watering them. It's finally helping me believe possibilities, believe in other things. And so
Yeah.
that was a big shift for me, because I realized, dude, there's mentors everywhere. Like this guy who wrote this book could be my mentor. I
Well,
could
you
find
know
a
what?
mentor on the internet. I could find a mentor anywhere and learn from him, relate to, and yeah, it's a huge shift for me.
I
So-
actually, dude, I do remember when I had that breakthrough. Like, you know, that moment where something clicks in your mind and like your life will never be the same. It was, I think it was the chapter on faith, and he explained about the story about this guy, I forget his name, who invented the telephone, or who not the telephone so much.
Thomas Edison.
No, sorry, not Thomas Edison. Guy who invented radio, like radio waves.
Mr. Burns, yep.
Yeah, something like that. And he said, oh yeah, this guy, he told everybody, he's like, I'm going to find a way to send messages through the air. And his friends actually got his head checked. Like, they brought him into a psychiatric hospital and, like, said, yo, this guy's going insane. So, and everybody thought that was impossible. Same thing with flight, same thing with going to the moon, you know, things like that. So what clicked in my mind is that literally anything is actually possible. Like, you could say, I'm going to be the first man to walk on the sun. Like, I might sound ridiculous, but who knows? Because this guy got his head checked for thinking about telephones and radio, yet look at today, you know? So just imagine the possibilities. It's ridiculous. And that's what clicked in my head, is that I can literally do anything.
I totally agree with Cam. I mean, one of the things that I've you know, going back to that book in itself, I think about, you know, the Darby effect. And I always tell people, I says, don't get the Darby disease. And they're like, what's the Darby disease? It's you're stopping short before you land in the gold mine and the diamonds. You know, and many people that are, you know, that are continuous in their self-development, in their personal development, they're starting to see, you know, these new realms of greatness, of, you know, of attracting, you know. And it's like Cam was saying, is there's millionaires that are so depressed because they forgot a lot about the laws that got them. And one of the things that I always revert back to is, you know, with that seed I was telling you about, you know, growing up and when somebody planted that seed, if nobody ever waters that seed, and even if you get multi-millionaire, you know, like even like Warren Buffett, I look at Warren Buffett, even today, Warren Buffett will still sit down and he'll spend an hour in harmonization, and then he'll go about reading old-time things from the history. He's always learning. And I'm thinking, how can a multi-billionaire continue to do that? Why can't I? He's the same man. He puts his pants on the same way I do. He goes to the bathroom the same way I do. You know what I'm saying? He eats the same way I do. So, I mean, there's nothing separating us. So, I mean, we could do the same thing. And it's like somebody said, you know, you have to apply action to your vision. And it's the same thing with our seed. Once the seed was planted, if you're not putting action to your vision, then it's merely a dream. It's merely a dream with no action.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, coming back to the power of mentors, well, I think it's so important that we're here doing this show right now, and that we're trying to be positive influence. You know, we're trying to be influencers for other people, you know, through our actions. I mean, you could hear me talk all day. I don't care. You know what I mean? I expect you more to see the actions I take and want to do that. But a thing I realized, I was having a great conversation with my friend Grace last night, and we were talking about how we were basically talking about mentors and how our lives have changed and how we kind of took this whole new path. And it was interesting because I was talking about how Tony Robbins, you know, was such a huge influence on me, and how much I relate to Tony Robbins, how much I resonate with his message and just the way he says things. It just hits me, you know?
Yeah.
And she was talking about how there's this artist named Mod Sun, hip hop artist who sings about law of attraction, positivity, all sorts of cool stuff. Similar message, completely different delivery, right? It's through music. It's you know, music and song and different messages, different words, but it still comes down to the same core idea. And the idea that I'm getting at here is, like, you may hate me and you may not like the way I say things or the message that I'm putting out there. I might be too blunt or something, right? But you're going to love Frank, and Frank's going to say the same things I'm saying, but he's going to say it in Frank's way. Yeah. And Frank's going to relate to people completely different. He's going to change or influence a whole different category of people compared to myself, because all of us humans have different ways to communicate. We all have different ways of understanding things and learning. And so that's why I think it's so important to just, even though a lot of the things that we're saying in this podcast right now are not new, right? This stuff's been around. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't revolutionary,
right?
But it's so important that we share it, because if we don't, it's just going to die and disappear, right? Why has the message of love been passed on for all of humanity, right? Because it needs to be reiterated. We need to hear it, and we need to hear it from different people in different ways in order for it to really hit us properly, right?
I totally agree, man. People will, it blows their mind, but the reality, it's so true, man. It's like I said, a book left onto the shelf to itself is actually just wasted energy, wasted time, wasted space. But when you take that book from off that shelf and you blow the dust off it, man, and you start applying the action, boy, you could share so much information with other people that are not readers. And as I shared with you before, when we spoke a week or 2 weeks ago, I was never that reader. You know, even through college, I struggled. But the ultimate desire as of 2015 was, I'm going to be an influencer. What do I need to do to be a learner? And I'm going to continue to go about it. And I'm going to give it 120, and I'm not going to stop. You know, and that's the biggest thing, man, is not stopping. You know, today I took the day off, man. I woke up this morning and my back was just sore. And I think it was because I didn't get enough rest this weekend, because I'm always waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I got this natural routine, each and every single morning. And I just, I woke up, man, my neck was stiff, man. So thankfully I used the Chinese recipe, which is rice in a sock, and hooked it up, man. I feel a whole lot better, man.
Yeah, no, thankfully, because you're here on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
So one thing we like to do in the show is make sure that before we end off, we're probably we're coming to the half-hour mark. Before we finish the podcast, we want to make sure we give people something to take home and use, right? We don't want you to just listen to this show passively and sit there and take it in. We want you to take action after the show. So Frank, what kind of action do you think our listeners could take today to find a mentor and to start making changes in their life?
Well, you know, the mind is made up of so many different qualities, man, and it's composited with so many things. And so is the heart, man. It's composited with so much information and so many valves, you know. But the best way to adamantly, just attain and to look for a positive person is to look at the person, visualize yourself as a tree inspector. And you're looking at the tree inspector, making sure that he blooms the tree perfectly, that he takes care of the tree, he waters it, and he nurtures it. That's the person I'm looking for, that type of person, you know, and he's always bearing fruit. So that's the person I'm absolutely looking for in a mentor, you know, and he just, that person that's, you know, blooming the tree and taking care of the tree. You might say the tree giver or the tree taker is absolutely just in love and harmony with that tree. And that's the person I'm looking for, because he's not just talking about the tree in itself. He's also putting action behind it.
Mm-hmm. Cam, do you have anything to add to that?
I totally agree, because applying what you learn is the most important part, you know? Because action without knowledge is, like you said, just you're just sitting there, you're smart and you're doing nothing with it, you know? And I've realized that because I come back to Think and Grow Rich, and I realize all the stuff that I don't do out of that book. I'm still, it was 2 years ago that I found it, and I'm still listening to it today, because the more you hear it, the more you apply it, the more you hear it, the more you could just think about it in your head. It becomes your thoughts. You know, your subconscious mind takes over you, and even I listen to it while I sleep. It's ridiculous, but I pass out to it, and the guy's still talking. He's the audiobook's still going on, and I'm listening to it while I sleep, because it just works. I don't know. Then I wake up, just my automatic thought is turn it back on. Let's cook some breakfast or something and listen to it again. And I re-listen to it, and it's becoming to the point where I'm finally ready to apply it, and I'm doing everything I can, you know. And just same thing with personal power. You can listen to Tony Robbins audios all day, but if you don't do anything, then it's not helping you. So
oh yeah, for sure. And that's you know, when it comes to personal development and self-help, that's something you got to be careful of, is because this information can become addictive, where it's like, oh, I just want to watch another video. I just want to learn more. I want to read another book. I want to go to another seminar, right? And it's so addictive, like all this stuff you're learning. But if you don't ever put it to action, you're wasting your time. You might as well be watching South Park. You might as well be playing GTA. You're still better off with that information than,
totally
what I mean, right?
So hard, yeah. I think
if I could have one thing to finding a mentor, it would be find someone who you relate to. For example, for me, one of my biggest mentors is Tony Robbins. And the reason why is I love the way he puts it. It's blunt. It's in your face. He'll swear at you. He'll do whatever he can to make you make a change. Right. And that's just me. That's my mentality. We have the same personality type, me and Tony Robbins, right? But, for example, someone like my Aunt Robin, she just watched his recent documentary and said, I can't do it. He swears too much. Like, I can't even listen to what he's saying. There's too much swearing. You know what I mean? The message isn't getting across to her because she doesn't relate to him or his delivery. Mm-hmm. So for you, find somebody, if you're like me and you just want to get punched in the face, like you need that information, a slap, looking at Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas, Gary Vaynerchuk, these are guys who are super blunt and they'll get that message across, right? But if you're more delicate or delicate's maybe not the right word, but you don't like the swearing or you don't like being yelled at, right? Look for mentors like Brian Tracy or Brendan Burchard. These guys are more Cameron. Cameron's not going to slap you in the face. I might slap you in the face, but find someone who you relate to and someone who inspires you. Because when I discovered Tony Robbins, it was like, man, I want to be this guy. Like the things that he's doing, the impact he's making, like it's just amazes me, right? But it might not amaze you. Find somebody who you could look at and be like, dude, I want to be that person. I love I love who they are, the decisions they make, the actions they take. I want to be that person. And then if they wrote a book, dive into it. If they did a movie, dive into it. If they did a podcast, dive into it and try to get every piece of information off that person that you can and just learn it and slowly kind of become the traits that you want to become.
That's right.
And yeah, that's my mentor.
I love it. I love it, man. That's so awesome. And you're so right. Real fast is I think that, when I look back at my second book, my second book was Think and Grow Rich. And, as Cam said, there's certain things that he didn't apply. And now he's starting to listen to it more and more. For audio listeners, I think that's really good. If you're an audio listener, versus visual learner, for me, I've watched many tutorials, by Eric Thomas in 2010, 2011, 2012, and then started applying a little information in 2012. But I had to visually watch the man, and then I became an affiliate of him. And to this day, I get to conversate with the counterparts, like Carl and CJ. But the reality is, here's this opportunity. It's like like Cam was saying, there was a man in the book of Think and Grow Rich. And it's that same thing. Is if you think about it, Mr. Emerson used to always think about getting to opportunity to work for Mr. Edison. And so he did every single thing he had to do to get to that point. And that's just it. Is so many people, you have the opportunity right now, each and every single morning that you wake up, you have that golden opportunity to do something about it. And instead of sitting and moaning and making excuses, excuses are for excuses and excuses are for people that need them. We don't need them. You wake up, you should be privileged, you should be in love, you should be in harmony, you should be thankful, and full of gratitude, and definitely apply the information to your life. There's so many wonderful books out there that can change your life. If you want to sit down under Tony Robbins, as Brent was saying, or if you want to sit down under ET or anyone else, apply the information though. And that's what I keep on encouraging people is don't be like me. Don't wait until 10 years or 15 years down the road before you start actually making a promise to apply it. Start doing it now. I know it's going to take some time and it's going to be some sacrifices and some struggles, but the opportunity you have each and every single morning to do it. Be about it,
Yeah, I wish I was Cameron's age learning the things I'm learning now. Right? But of course, it's never too late. It's never too late to take the actions that you're learning. It's never too late to keep learning. You should be learning constantly. Like you said, those billionaires, those people who are making the biggest impact in the world, they're also the ones who read the most, or if you're not a reader, listen the most, or if you're not a listener, study the most, whatever it is, right? And so putting in that work and realizing it's never too late, and you could start now because there's only this moment. For all we know, in the next 5 minutes, the whole planet's going to blow up and it's all over. Okay.
Right.
So do something right now. You don't know what's going to happen next. Do something. All right, Cam, let's wrap it up, dude, before I get too intense on you guys.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you, Frank, for also tuning in, I guess. Dude, like, you are awesome, honestly. And it'd be awesome in the future to have you in again because, I don't know, I just like the way you deliver your message and all the stories you have and stuff. It's great.
I appreciate you, Cam, man. I thank you guys, and we'll do it later on. Appreciate you guys. Many
Absolutely.
blessings. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
Take
so
care, guys.
Tune into the next week's episode, and remember to leave a review on iTunes. That really helps a lot more than you guys know. And as always, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Go lead your life. Peace.